basically revived Donald Trump when he was politically no longer a factor by pursuing some of the cases against him. I'm just wondering what your response to that.
No response.
And I had a big victory in New York, I might add. I saved myself $500 million with a fake, corrupt attorney general, a really corrupt person with a corrupt judge who was disgraceful, and they're being mauled right now by everybody. It's so corrupt, and it kept business out of New York. Stuff like that. But the appellate division vacated all of that stuff that you read about, and we're going to do a big number on that whole thing. You can't have a corrupt court system. You can't have that. You have to have borders, and you have to have a free press. Otherwise, you don't have a country.
Well, you went to Letitia James's home this week. You were in New York.
Yeah, look, I'm a prosecutor, and when I do these cases, I was in New York I was in Newark, actually, New Jersey, for some meetings, and I went over to New York for another meeting, and I went by there. One of the referrals is about that property that she has. Is a very prominent neighborhood in Brooklyn, and I wanted to lay eyes on it. I think most people, if you're prosecuting something, you're careful. I didn't go there and announce it. Some woman came storming up and shooting video and talking to me, but I wanted to see the property, and there's a number of other aspects of these cases where you got to get a sense of what is actually at stake.
Do you have a grand jury in these cases?
Let me say, when you get a criminal referral, one of the tools you have is a grand jury, and I'll leave it to you to infer what I mean. But these referrals are criminal referrals, significant enough that they would warrant using all the tools, and the tools include subpoenas and witnesses, and that is in our system. That is the system. I'm not like Jack Smith. Jack Smith liked to talk about how he did things and what he did and brag about it. Letitia James did, by the way, as a prosecutor. She liked to come out and hold press conferences. I'll just tell you, when you get a criminal referral, and her own lawyer made the comments publicly, you can infer what you need to.
You have criminal referrals right now on Adam Schiff, Letitia James, among others. What is the status?
Well, first of all, thanks for asking about the last 10 years. I mean, when Donald Trump came into office as president, he signed an executive order saying, go and find out how government was weaponized against the citizens. When Attorney General Bondi came into office, she put a memo, put more specifics to it, and said, get to the bottom of this. She gave a specific list and a broad charge. And I have to tell you, for your viewers, we have the Attorney General Bondi has that Department of Justice spinning like a top. We've got more stuff going on. A lot of it we can't talk about because of the nature of it, but it's going like crazy. And all we're doing at DOJ and all we're doing across the government is saying, get the truth out. And then, by the way, let's hold people accountable. And that's exactly what's going on. So when Bill Pulte sends a criminal referral over to us, and he says Letitia James and Adam Schiff, and by the way, both their lawyers have come out and talked publicly about that criminal referral. So you can talk to them about the specifics, because I'm going to tell you what we're going to do is we're going to follow the facts. Every American has a mortgage or has other documents they sign has to follow the law. We're going to go to the very bottom of the facts, and if somebody did something wrong, we're not only going to hold them accountable, we're also going to look at everything else that they've been doing, because when you're a liar, you lie not just on one thing. When you're a cheater, you cheat not just on one thing. When you're doing corruption, you generally don't just do it on one thing. So that's our what we're asked to do as prosecutors, and that's what we're doing.
Kellyanne, let's show what the judges were saying in this case. What is your reaction when you heard about it? Because this is one of the weaponization cases against Trump.
If you go back and just listen to his comments from the bench, it was very obvious, Elizabeth, he was trying to be judge, jury, persecutor, prosecutor, and God. He made these ridiculous comments about, I've seen no remorse, therefore the penalty must be higher. He banned Eric and Don Jr., the Trump sons, from trying to do business in New York for 2 years, from the Trump organization applying for bank loans and the rest of it. The appeals court did put those restrictions on hold, but just think about that. The 100% of the judgment was about $500 million, and of that, 2% were to be paid by Alvin Weisselberg, who did go to prison, and Don Jr. and Eric, the rest by Donald Trump. It's a huge vindication, but it should scare us all. This isn't ancient history. This happened last year.
Okay,
this happened in February of 2024.
It did. I want to get your, the judges, though, appear to be setting the stage to get this case tossed out from the appellate decision in New York.
Yes.
Let's get your reaction to this. Letitia James' abuses of power that, quote, the Attorney General General repeatedly campaigned on using her office's powers to pursue Trump. Believing it would be politically popular, this was selective enforcement. She failed to prove her case. Her case has grave constitutional concerns. It was based on the vague testimony of a convicted perjurer, meaning Michael Cohen. This case is a new invention of Letitia James, her own devising specifically for the purpose of prosecuting Trump. They've never seen a case like this before, that her case was unprecedented, and she stretched the New York law. What do you say, Kellyanne?
I say it's going to be very difficult for the last court, the ultimate court in New York, to ignore what the appellate court has said. What are they going to say? None of that is true. We have Letitia James on tape. She promised to do this. She was tweeting ridiculous juvenile things like roses are red, violets are blue, no one's above the law, that includes you. Same applies for her now. You know, I think by now she thought in 2025 Donald Trump would be broke behind bars. She'd be governor of New York. Yet he's the president of the United States. This appellate court has tossed out this. We have one more court to go for true justice. And I would call her irrelevant, but she's relevant in one way. It looks like she committed mortgage fraud. And she put her father as her husband. Bill Pulte over at FHFA has showed us the documents that prove her, Lisa Cook, one of the 7 governors on the Fed board. She's another one who's lied, Adam Schiff. Look, these are true violations of the law, Elizabeth, but it's also important because each one of them has gone against Donald Trump, and each one of them has said nobody is above the law. Because the depth, I think the extent to which, and you pulled the best passages from the appellate court decision, the extent to which they shot down every claim in that court. Sometimes appellate divisions, they can put out a 1 or 2 page statement. They took the time and the care to go claim by claim, statement by statement, and really blow holes in them. And I think it's just a great day for justice. We have one more court to go. President Trump thanked his legal team who were against the odds, thanked his sons, thanked the Trump Organization, and really thanked everybody who stayed with him, not just politically, but legally. Elizabeth, 15 short months ago, he was sitting in a courtroom, another courtroom in another case, in the freezing cold. They thought they'd put him behind bars.
Watching this assistant prosecutor from the AG's office make this ridiculous argument to the appeals court, talking about fraud and disgorgement of ill-gotten gains, when there was no actual fraud. Nobody was defrauded of a damn thing. There was not one nickel that was defrauded from any of these lenders. And so the whole thing is just built on a house of cards. Engoron, I think, has some responsibility here too, because if you're the judge and the trial judge, you're supposed to make sure that this kind of farce doesn't happen in your courtroom, but he allowed it and he was a part of it. And so what I want to know is why we are allowing these judges like this and prosecutors like this to stay involved in these cases. When Tish James goes out and makes all of these public comments about how she is focusing her efforts specifically on one individual that she is targeting for political reasons, how is that prosecutor allowed by the judge to remain on the case? In a rational world, in a rational legal world, a trial judge would not allow either of these prosecutors to stay in the case. A simple motion saying, look, judge, this is what she has said publicly about my client. She's targeting my client. And in a criminal context, if you're talking about, targeted malicious prosecution, that's one thing. It's the same principle over in the civil case. You can't just use the awesome power of the state to target and prosecute specific persons with whom you have a political beef, and it's just so crazy that we're here in August of 2025 having this discussion, because this is like law 101. It's almost like people forgot law that they learned in law school, or they were absent the day they taught law in law school. Engoron needs to be off the bench. He has no business presiding over trials in New York. Letitia James has no business bringing, of all things, mortgage fraud cases now on behalf of the state of New York. These people need to be out of their jobs. They need to be dealt with. They need to be dealt with severely. And honestly, I'm at the point where I don't know that the appeals process is enough. It's not enough to just say, all right, Engoron, you and your $500 million judgment, you're done, no more of that. That's not enough. We need to have an appellate process that can send a message to prosecutors and to judges and say, look, you can't do this. Tish James personally ought to have to reimburse him. It ought to come out of her hide. It ought to come out of her bank account. Whatever she's got left, it ought to bankrupt her the way it's, it could bankrupt.
She's
if it
got
wasn't
multiple
Donald
homes.
Trump, if it wasn't Donald Trump, nobody else would have been able to afford to defend themselves in this litigation. So she ought to be on the hook personally, financially, for this type of specious and egregious, malicious prosecution.
That's all for today. Thank you. If you want global news to keep you up to date on any new developments, please subscribe our channel and forward our content with your friends on social media and email. Thank you very much for keep supporting me. Stay safe, be blessed. Namaste.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.